So like many people on here, I've been lurking on here for quite a while. After reading many interesting and horrifying stories, I decided to share one of my own. Names in this particular story have been changed. It was December, and Christmas was right around the corner. It was late, around 3 in the morning or so. I was sick, so I was on a strange sleep schedule at the time. Being bored, and the fact that none of my friends were online, I decided to venture into a site called Omegle. I went on there quite often at the time, mainly to troll people, but tonight I decided to have some actual conversations with people. Big mistake. So I decided to talk to people under the anime tab, because people on there seemed generally cool for the most part. Of course, there's always horny teenagers looking for a girlfriend, no matter what tag you're on. I eventually find someone who isn't a bot and who doesn't immediately ask ASL, meaning age, sex, location. Azula asks me what my favorite anime is, and I jokingly say Fat Albert. I knew I said I didn't want to troll, but I couldn't help myself. A conversation ensues after that about anime and such, and she seems like a genuinely decent person. She then asked me for my email. I gave her my spam email, knowing that there's no real harm in giving that one out. So we continue our chat in a Google Plus hangout. She starts to ask to video chat. I declined, telling her that I don't even voice chat with my real life friends. But she keeps on persisting, and I keep telling her no. I was starting to think that she was actually some pedophile. I told her I didn't feel comfortable revealing my face to anyone online, and I really didn't want to voice chat. She then says that she'll send me a picture of her face if I send her a picture of mine, so I let her send hers first. I then did a reverse image search to see if the photo was fake. Nothing came up anywhere, so I knew that it wasn't. So reluctantly, I took a picture of myself and sent it to her. I figured it couldn't do any harm. She then kept persisting to video chat. I kept telling her no. I then turned off my computer because I was tired and annoyed. I didn't really think much about it, but I was planning on blocking her the next day. A day later, I get on my computer and was about to block her. But as soon as I got on, she messaged me immediately. At this point, I thought she was either stalking me or had no life and was at her computer all day. So I went ahead and talked to her. She apologized for being pushy and explained that she didn't have many friends and just wanted to get to know me. I said it was fine. So we talked about anime as well as video games and such. A normal conversation for me. The next day, we talk again. She wants to video chat. I told her that I'd voice chat since I did that all the time. Once we were in the voice call, she kept asking me to turn my camera on. Her camera was on at this point, so I was sure she wasn't a 40-year-old man. I told her I didn't feel comfortable doing that. She said she wanted me to video chat to make sure I wasn't some 40-year-old pedo. My voice was quite deep, so I understood why. So again, reluctantly, I turned my camera on. After that, everything seemed to be okay. I could tell there was something wrong, but I figured she was just socially awkward. After that, things were okay for a few weeks. But one day, she randomly told me that she had a crush on me. I told her that I don't do online relationships, and she got really depressed after that. She kept saying how every guy, 5 in total I believe, has turned her down, and she's really sad about it. I didn't know what to do at that point. I felt really bad for her because I knew how it felt to be rejected and how awkward it is to stay friends with them afterwards. So I made one of the dumbest mistakes of my life. I said that I actually did like her back. Nowadays, there's no way in hell I would have done any of this, but I was 14 at the time, I was young and dumb. Just keep that in mind. So I was basically in a fake, fabricated online relationship at this point. I didn't consider her my girlfriend, and only one of my friends, we'll call him Eric, even knew about her existence. In fact, he was in a group chat with us. That's when things started to get strange. In the group chat, we had a decent conversation, but it got weirder after I left. Azula started asking Eric really personal questions about me. Eric gave her the runaround, telling her that she shouldn't be asking me that stuff. She was asking questions like what my last name was, where I lived, etc. Eric didn't tell me about this, but I saw it in the group chat. I thought it was really strange that she would ask someone these questions, knowing that I would see them when I got back. Anyway, at this point she kept asking me what my last name was. Remember, Azula was very persistent, and she wouldn't stop asking a question even if you decline. So I find out that she goes on Facebook and searches every person with that same first name. My first name is fairly common, so there's a lot of people to go through. I couldn't believe it. She spent days trying to find my Facebook. I've never seen so much dedication. Red flags were definitely going off at this point. She eventually finds my Facebook and sends me a friend request. I declined because I was very pissed that she had invaded my privacy. She then started private messaging me on Google Hangouts, asking me about my family members. My friends on Facebook weren't private for some reason. She literally wrote down a list of them all, asking them how they were related to me. I got really scared at this point. I knew I had a stalker and I didn't know what to do. I blocked her on everything and deleted everything on the net that had my real name in it. I had officially went rogue. She eventually emails me on another email of mine. Don't ask me how she found it, I honestly have no clue. Perhaps it was on my Facebook before I deleted it. Anyway, she spams that email with countless messages per day. I blocked her and the emails stop. I didn't hear from her for about a month. Then, one day, I accidentally deleted an important email. I went to my trash to recover it. In my trash were hundreds of emails from her. I nearly soiled myself in fear. The last email was from that day, so in morbid curiosity, I read some of the emails. What I found was nothing short of frightening. She told me that she thinks there's something wrong with her, and that she enjoys and gets off on the pain of others. She said that she knows where I lived and was going to fly over here and live with me. I was so scared at this point, I was honestly worried that she was going to kill me. I deleted that email account and have been off the grid ever since.
For a few years there, Omegle and chat roulette were like the best things ever. I know it sounds dumb, but the idea of coming face to face with random internet people absolutely terrified me at first. I wasn't the most confident of people when I was younger, and believe it or not, using stuff like Omegle actually helped me come out of my shell a little and learn how to talk to people. And naturally, like anyone who's spent a lot of time on Omegle, I have a lot of stories detailing some of the weirder encounters I've had on there. I mean, I've had some pretty amazing ones. I met one of my long-term gaming buddies on Omegle, and you'd be surprised at the number of girls who just want to show themselves off, so to speak, every once in a while. But I've also had my share of gross, sad, irritating, and downright scary encounters on Omegle too. And what I'm about to tell you is by far the most disturbing. And it's not some dumb creepypasta either. Every word of this is true. So I just gotten home from this terrible part-time job I was working in 2012, and at the time, my routine was like, get home, sneak one of my stepdad's beers from the garage, and see how palpable the mental illness was on Omegle that afternoon. I was actually having a good run at one point. I had a guy singing that Call Me Maybe song, another dude who did a magic trick, and a handful of pretty girls, and I think one dude was on acid or something. So all in all, I was in a pretty good mood by the time I hit end and knew for what turned out to be the final time of that night. Because when I do, I just see this dude sitting at his desk, staring blankly into the webcam. Immediately this hits me as unusual because most people are looking at their screens to see who you are and not straight up staring into the camera. I said like, "Hey, what's up?" or something. But the dude didn't reply, so I figured that there was just something wrong with his audio. Now I should add that it was usually around this time that I'd just end a chat and start a new one. If the person on the other end seemed too weird or like they wouldn't be much fun, I just skipped them entirely. So as you can imagine, coupled with all the other weird stuff you're likely to see during an Omegle session, I ended up doing a lot of skipping. But something about this dude really got my attention. At first, when I saw him, he looked like he might be in his early to mid-teens, dark hair and eyes, kind of a baby face with scrawny shoulders. But the more I looked, the older he seemed to be. The guy had crow's feet, deep bags under his eyes. Pretty sure he had flecks of gray at his temples too. Like if he was as young as I thought he was, then he must have had the most brutal paper route in history. So for some reason, at a time I'd normally just ghost him, I said, are you okay, dude? Can you hear me? He nods. He could hear me, and it hit me that this might be another case of someone browsing Omegle while they're high. It might sound a little mean or whatever, but I figured that I'd just mess with him just a little bit. Maybe see if I could guess what kind of drug he was taking. I start talking real slow to him, trying to make him think time is slowing down or something, but he barely reacts. And it's then that I realize that he hasn't looked at his screen or monitor. The whole time he was literally just staring at this little lens on his webcam. I break from the play acting and just ask him straight up, "What kind of stuff are you on, dude?" He just shakes his head. So I ask him if he means he isn't on any drugs at all, and to that he nods. Now I'm torn between laughing because of what could have been a blatant lie and kind of freaking out because if he wasn't lying, and that was him sober, that made for one real creepy guy. And then out of nowhere, this guy reaches up towards his mouth like he's about to take out some gum or something. At first, I think he's going to show me some weird root he's been chewing on that made him look all sleepy. I mean, if there is such a thing, I was just kind of speculating. I know people can get some pretty weird South American plants and stuff from shady websites. But then it becomes obvious that he has hold of his own tooth. His front tooth, I think. Like in the grip of his thumb and forefinger. And then he starts to pull. I respond, "Dude, what are you doing?" All calm at first. And then he starts really getting a grip on his tooth, pulling it and twisting it. And I respond, stop! What are you thinking, man?" This all escalates until I hear like a deep cracking sound coming from this guy's mic. He twists the tooth free from his gum as blood starts to pour out of his mouth, then holds it up to the camera like he's all proud of himself. I am full-on squealing at the computer at this point, stuck between wanting to cover my eyes and turn it off, and not being able to look away because of what this guy is even doing. I asked him in like 100 different ways, "Why did you do that? Was it rotten? Can't you go to the dentist?" He doesn't say a word. He just spends a few more seconds smiling with this gap-toothed grin, mopping at the blood on his chin and holding up the tooth in front of the webcam. Then he disappears and I'm left on the new chat screen, just shell-shocked. Nothing has ever topped that for me in terms of just pure creepiness. Like I have so many unanswered questions about that guy, and each time I think I get close to figuring it out, it just opens me up to 100 other questions. I mean, he would have had to have been on drugs to be able to pull his own tooth out like that. I don't think anyone could stand the sheer agony. And it's also the whole idea that it wasn't his first time doing it. As crazy as it sounds, he seemed to just know what he was doing. That he had to twist it and wrench it. He knew exactly how to grip it. And then the sense of pride at the end. It all just gave me this distinct feeling that he'd done that kind of thing before. I didn't see anything else that ever made me react so strongly, and after that, all the random guys just sort of playing with their junk that you'd see didn't seem to faze me at all. Like as long as there wasn't any tooth pulling, it was just water off the duck's back. So, I guess I have something to thank Mr. Toothpuller for, although saying that it's not something I want to see again. In fact, I hope I never meet Mr. Toothpuller online, or in real life, ever again.
Many years ago, when I was 11, we had a very sudden and unexpected death in the family. Everyone was devastated and trying to cope with their grief in their own way while dealing with the fallout. Not long after this, just before summer vacation, my best friend and her family moved abroad for 6 months, so I was feeling particularly sad and lonely, and started playing on the computer a lot more. We had just gotten dial-up a year or so before, so I was able to use the internet to play online games, but very quickly became bored and wished I was able to talk to my friend, when I remembered a classmate had mentioned they had a pen pal. I googled pen pals, and the results came up with an instant chat room which, to my 11-year-old mind, seemed much better than waiting weeks for letters. The description said it was for people 13 plus, but I paid no mind to that and signed up anyway, and had a few enjoyable days chatting far away to strangers from Canada, Germany, and even Australia. It was good fun, and quite interesting to talk to new people, but then I kept getting kicked off by mods doing the rounds when they found out I was only 11. So I changed my answer to 13. And then I met James. James was 26, male, and from Ireland, and seemed very nice and polite, and we talked for about 40 minutes. He asked what year or grade I was going into after summer break, and by deciding at this point he wasn't a mod, I told him I was actually only 11 and just about to go into high school when I had to get off the computer and go to bed. I was very surprised the next day when James initiated another chat with me, since you normally don't chat to the same person unless you had specifically taken a note of the username and watched for them to come online. We chatted for a lot longer this time. He said he lived alone in a specially built cottage because he'd been in a motorcycle accident when he was 17, which left him in a wheelchair. He liked talking about what I did at school, about my friend, and what kind of games we played. He asked if I'd worn a school uniform, and did my next school require me to wear one, because when he was in school, it was a Catholic school, and you absolutely always had to wear your uniform. Weeks passed of near daily talking. We had moved on to MSN chat at that point because he said he wanted to be able to email me when he thought of things he'd like to chat about, and I could just email him back if he wasn't online. He started to get annoyed that I can only chat when I was allowed on the computer, and even then, I could only be on it for a few hours at a time, so he started pestering me to give him my mobile number so we could at least text if I wasn't able to get online. Not long after that, he began asking if he could call me. He wanted to hear my voice, and really, how different was it to talking online? Didn't I want to hear what an Irish accent sounded like? Wasn't I interested in him? We only spoke on the phone once. He sounded reasonably young, and either was actually Irish or just very good at putting the accent on. He commented on how young I sounded, jokingly asking if I had been naughty and lied about my age again. Then the chats and texts got more intrusive. Where are you now? What are you doing? Why are you taking so long to reply? Are you in your pajamas? What color knickers do you have on? I would tell him off when he asked things like that. I didn't like it, and I would tell him that I was miffed. He would swing between acting all remorseful, begging for forgiveness, saying he was just being silly, to acting indignant. He was just interested in me, and why is that such a hard question? I'm obviously just a badly behaved, silly little girl, and he's done wasting his time talking to me. His punishment was swift and brutal, cutting all contact for a few days or so, leaving me confused and upset that I really was a terrible friend. He always came back, acting like nothing ever happened, and in the end, I just started saying whatever random color came to my mind when he asked. Then he started asking about meeting up. He would travel over to see me because I obviously couldn't travel to see him, and instead of going to school, he would take me out for the day so we could get to know each other properly. When I seemed hesitant to agree to his plan, he would become irate. What's the point in having a friend you can never see? Didn't I know he was falling in love with me? I told him he couldn't because I was much younger than him, and he responded by saying it doesn't matter because his father is a lot older than his mother, and anyway, we could get married when I turned 16. I said I wasn't even starting to think about getting married or leaving home, and he blew up, yelling, saying I was a horrible child who was obviously against people who are in wheelchairs. I was cruel and lazy, assuming I would have to wheel him around everywhere. How selfish of me not to consider the feelings of my husband-to-be, before cutting off contact again. But this time, I wasn't in a hurry to hear from him, so I didn't send him my usual apology, text, email, which I think surprised him. A couple of days later, he emailed, as usual, acting like nothing happened, but talking about booking tickets to come visit when school started up again in a few weeks. I didn't respond. He texted and then emailed again and again. His emails at first concerned, then more and more annoyed at my lack of response. Finally, I told my older sibling a superficial explanation of someone on my new email who was bothering me, and they emailed him from my account telling him to leave me alone or I would tell my dad. I never heard from him again.